Hello, my name is Charles Webster Bear, and today is May 9, 2021, and I am in Terrebonne, Oregon, USA, and my website is globalinternetgovernment.com. And today I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff, and eventually my phone will stop taking this video because I'll run out of gigabytes and I won't have any more storage. So I'll talk about as many things as I can until that happens. The first thing I want to talk about is depopulationism. And the second thing I want to talk about is gig. And the third thing I want to talk about is fog bank. And the fourth thing I want to talk about is the Capitol. And the fifth thing I want to talk about is me. And the sixth thing I want to talk about is the history of the universe. So let's begin with topic number one, depopulationism. Depopulationism is a word. And I don't know who invented that word. And there's a small possibility that I invented that word. And the word depopulationism probably has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. So we're going to talk about what the word depopulationism means to me. We're going to talk about my opinion of the definition of the word depopulationism. And I tend to adhere to the traditional classic Chinese interpretation of the word depopulationism, which means it's the one woman, one child policy that was created by the Chinese government in the 1980s. And I became a depopulationist in 1985 or earlier. And so I've been talking about this subject and this concept for over 36 years. So I've actually gotten pretty good at it, I think. Depopulationists like myself feel that it's illegal and immoral for anybody on the planet Earth in this century to reproduce a second time. This will allow the number of people on the planet Earth to decline until it reaches a sustainable number. And this number is a number for future generations to determine, but I will go ahead and guess that it's around 2 or 3 billion people. Then it'll stay at that sustainable level. And this will give the environment an opportunity to heal. And this will give an opportunity for more trees to grow back. And then in the future, when people want to breathe oxygen, they'll be able to do that because there'll be enough trees to create enough oxygen for people to breathe. And then we won't all suffocate to death. And that's a good thing. So depopulationists want to create a significant and sustained and immediate decline in the human population. And the way we want to do that is peaceful and legal. And we want to create a worldwide society where it is illegal for anybody to reproduce a second time. And we want to create that world peacefully and legally through democracy and elections and new constitutions. Because depopulationism is the only rational and fair way to save the planet Earth. Because right now the number of people on the planet Earth is increasing, and that's the wrong direction. That's a suicide course. So we need the number of people on the planet Earth to be decreasing. Human beings do not have the right to kill Earth. Human beings do not have the right to threaten the environment. But that's what we're doing, and it's wrong, and we need to stop. We're doing it because we're stupid and greedy and evil and insane, and we need to rise above ourselves and become these enlightened beings that we think we are. Depopulationism is the latest evolution in the individual. And depopulationism is the latest evolution in the evolution of civilization and society. Depopulationists are part of the solution, and everybody else is part of the problem. Depopulationists are people who are intelligent enough to know what's going on, and they need to explain that to everyone else, and that's what I'm doing. Environmentalists want to save the planet, but they're too stupid to know how to do that. Depopulationists want to save the planet, and they're intelligent enough to know how to do that. Depopulationism is the new religion of this millennium. Okay? Now, smart people who want to save the planet are depopulationists, and we're outnumbered. But that's okay, because we're recruiting. So, if you are not a depopulationist, I strongly suggest you become one soon. And if you are a depopulationist, that's good, but you need to do more. You need to become politically active. And you need to only vote for candidates who are publicly depopulationists. And you need to run for political office as a depopulationist. Depopulationism is the only relevant topic. It's the only issue that matters. Everything else is insignificant. So that's depopulationism. Depopulationism. More trees, less people. The human race, our species, is killing the planet Earth. That's bad. Depopulationists are trying to prevent that. Depopulationists are trying to save the planet Earth from human beings. We are the problem, and the solution is less of us. Okay? It's not complicated. It's actually very simple. There's enough people on the planet. That means you don't need to make any more. In fact, there's probably too many people on the planet, which means you should not make any more. Depopulationists are trying to make it illegal to kill the planet. Okay? We're not free to kill Earth. We don't have the freedom to kill the planet. That's too much freedom. If we're free to destroy the planet and ourselves, then we have too much freedom. So that's depopulationism. It's sane human beings, like myself, trying to explain to our species, the human race, that we should not kill Earth by overpopulating it, that we should save Earth by underpopulating it. That's depopulationism. Okay? Depopulationism, it's important to understand the concept. It's important to understand the idea. It's important to understand the word. It's important to say the word out loud, in public, often. Like me. So that's topic number one, depopulationism. Now we're going to go to topic number two, GIG. GIG is Global Internet Government. I created GIG in the spring of 2000 in Portland, Oregon. GIG is the world government. GIG is going to unite the human race politically and economically. GIG is a social media network and a media outlet, and GIG is going to give the entire human race, GIG is going to give all people a platform and a foundation to participate in and contribute to the world government. Total freedom of speech, no censorship. GIG is going to unite the world politically and economically. GIG is going to unite the world politically with freedom and democracy and equality and reproductive rights. And reproductive rights means that all human beings on Earth have the right to free and total access to all forms of birth control, including abortion and birth control education. Any government that does not completely and totally support this right now is an illegitimate government. Illegitimate governments will be replaced quickly and peacefully by global internet government. So that's how GIG's going to unite the world politically. GIG's going to unite the world economically with transparency and balanced budget amendments and trade agreements, regional currencies. And GIG is going to monitor every financial transaction by every government on Earth by putting every financial transaction by every government on Earth immediately online, publicly for everyone to see. And that way everybody everywhere can see where all the money's going, who's getting it, where they got it, how much they got, who they got it from, when they got it, what they did with it, when they did that with it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Total transparency for all governments. 100% transparency for all government spending. Every government financial transaction everywhere is immediately online, completely, totally, thoroughly public. Boom. So any government anywhere on the world can be part of GIG. They have to agree to the terms. The first rule is they have to pass a constitutional law that says that nobody in that country is allowed to reproduce a second time. forever, period. The second rule to get into gig is that you have to have total freedom of speech, total freedom of the press, total democracy. And there's a lot of wiggle room here for me to work with communist countries, so don't worry about that. I can handle the commies because I'm one of them. So I can pull that off, no problem. Okay, and rule number 3 is you have to have less than 3% inflation for 3 consecutive years. And then there's some other rules, but those are the 3 big ones. So if any country anywhere wants to be part of gig, they can, but they have to agree to the rules, and those are the 3 big rules. And they have to have an election, and the majority of the voters have to say, we want to be part of gig. And then they're in. And if they want to get out, they have to have another election where the majority of voters says we want out of gig, and then they're out. So any country anywhere can enter gig and leave gig whenever they want. They just have to agree to the rules and then vote themselves in. And if they want out, they can vote themselves out. So that's global internet government. The goal is depopulationism, and the plan is gig. The way to save the planet is depopulationism. The way to do that is global internet government. Okay, and freedom of speech and democracy are relative terms, so I can work with communist countries on this. I can work with dictatorships on this. There's a lot of wiggle room here. Okay, I've been throwing this against the wall for 21 years, so I know which way it bounces. So that's topic number 2. So topic number 3 is FogBank. And FogBank is my cyber currency that I created in 2019. And the unit of currency for FogBank is a FogBuck, F-O-G-B-U-K, plural FogBucks, F-O-G-B-U-X. So anybody anywhere can buy any amount of FogBucks for 1 penny each. Now the value of a FogBuck is 0. And hopefully that value will go up, because it can't go down, because FogBank doesn't loan or do debt or any of that. So the value of a FogBuck currently is nothing, 0, zip, nada, zilch, bubkus. But hopefully that the value of a FogBuck increases to something at some point in the future. And if and when that occurs, then the value of a FogBuck will fluctuate. And it's the nature of currencies to fluctuate in value, especially cyber currencies. They go up and down. Now, there's also something called a FogBic, F-O-G-B-I-K, plural FogBics, F-O-G-B-I-X. Now, the value of a FogBuck and a FogBic is always identical. The value of a FogBuck and a FogBic is always the same, forever, no matter what. Okay? Now, if you have a FogBuck, you have it forever until you give it away or spend it. If you have a FogBic, you have it until you give it away or spend it, or until FogBank takes it away from you. So a FogBank can't take away your FogBucks, but it can take away your FogBics. Why? Because it gave you the FogBics in the first place. And I'm giving everybody on the planet 10,000 FogBics right now. So you've got them as long as you've got them. And if gig takes them, or if FogBank takes them away from you, then you don't got them no more. Those are FogBics. So if you have FogBucks, FogBank can't terminate them. But if you have FogBics, FogBank can terminate them if it wants to, depending on its mood. Sometimes FogBank's happy, sometimes FogBank's sad. So every FogBank, every FogBuck has its own unique FogBuck number. Every FogBic has its own unique FogBic identification number. Every FogBank user has its own unique identification FogBank user number. Every FogBank transaction has its own unique individual FogBank transaction number. And all this stuff is totally transparent. All this information is completely public to everybody all the time. So everybody everywhere can always see where all the FogBank currency is. Every unit of FogBank currency, all the FogBucks and all the FogBics are all accounted for all the time to everybody everywhere. So everybody everywhere can see where all the cash is at. So FogBank is 100% transparent. 100%. Totally transparent. Everybody can always see where all the currency is at all the time. Who's got it, and the entire history of that currency. Not only is all the currency transparent, the entire history of the currency is entirely transparent. Even currency that gets deleted is transparent. And you can even see where the deleted currency is and the history of that currency. And that's what makes FogBank the best currency ever. It's clean. FogBank is a cyber currency. FogBank will soon become the cyber currency. Then FogBank will become the currency. Then FogBank will become the only currency, because FogBank is going to eat every other currency. FogBank's going to eat all the money in the universe, because people just won't want to use any other kind of money. They'll be able to use dirty money. They just won't want to, because it doesn't make any sense. They'll be able to use secret money. They just won't want to, because it doesn't make any sense. FogBank also has a ceiling and a floor. If you have 1 trillion American dollars worth of FogBucks and you want more FogBucks, you can't have any more FogBucks because you've already got too much money. So that's the ceiling. And if you have less than 10 FogBics, you'll get 10 FogBics a week for every week you have less than 10 FogBics. So that's the floor. So now, instead of rich people having infinite amounts of money, there's now a finite gap that is going to shrink. FogBank is going to lower the ceiling and increase the floor. So every year, the gap between rich and poor will shrink. So FogBank is not only the only clean money because it's transparent, it's the only fair money because it's eliminating or decreasing and eventually eliminating the gap between rich and poor, which right now is infinite and getting larger. So that's what makes FogBank the best currency, and that's what's going to make FogBank eventually the only currency. Because everything else is funny money. And there ain't nothing funny about money. Honey. So that's FogBank. Now let's talk about the capital. The capital is one word. The capital. And there's no capital letters in it. It sounds like 2 words, I know. The capital. It sounds like 2 words. It's only 1 word. And there's no capital letters. It's all undercase. Okay. Now I, Charles Webster Bear, am the owner and founder and president of Global Internet Government and FogBank. And I will always own all of GIG, and I will always own all of FogBank. And GIG and FogBank are 2 totally separate businesses. So GIG and FogBank are totally separate businesses. They have no relationship with each other. other than the fact that I own both of them 100% and always will. Okay? Now, I've created the capital because when I die or retire, I am going to take GIG and FogBank and merge them into one thing called the capital, and then that will become an international nonprofit organization. And that's the capital. And I'm going to make an assembly which will be modeled after the United States House of Representatives. And there'll be about 800 representatives in this assembly. And every country will get one representative in this assembly. And every country will get one representative for every 10 million citizens. So America will have 340 assembly members. Or no, wait. America will have 34 assembly members. England will have 7 assembly members. China will have 130 assembly members. So every country gets one assembly member, and then every country gets one assembly member for every 10 million people in the country. And it'll be totally democratic, and it'll be called the capital, and the assembly will pass legislation, majority rule, and that legislation will run the capital. And while I'm alive, that legislation will be merely advice to me. And when I'm dead, that legislation will be law. And while I'm alive, I'll own GIG and FogBank, and they'll be totally separate businesses. And when I'm dead, GIG and FogBank will merge into one international nonprofit called the Capital, and it will be run by the Assembly. So that'll be the new world government, and it'll be totally democratic. And every nation will elect their own assemblymen to the Capitol, or women. Every nation will elect their own assembly people to the Capitol if they're able to do that. And if they're not able to do that, then I'll appoint them. And while I'm alive, the legislation that the Assembly passes will merely be advice to me. And when I'm dead, the legislation that the Assembly passes will become the law, because they'll be running the show in a free and democratic world government. And that is the capital. So, we've talked about depopulationism. We've talked about GIG. We've talked about FogBank. And we've talked about the capital. So we basically talked about everything we need to talk about. This has been a good talk. But I'm going to keep talking, because I don't know how much longer my phone's going to go, but I'll let it roll for as long as it's going to roll. So we've arrived at topic number 5. Me. I am Charles Webster Bear. I am 52 years old. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. I've never been married. I don't have any kids. I'm an atheist. I'm an agnostic. I'm a Buddhist. I was born and raised in Santa Cruz, California. I went to high school in Newport, Rhode Island. In 1994, I graduated from the University of Hawaii at Hilo on the Big Island of Hawaii. And then I moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And in 1999, I moved to Portland, Oregon. And in the year 2000, I created Global Internet Government. And in 2007, I moved to Bend, Oregon. And in 2014, I moved to China for 3 years. And in 2019, I created Fog Bank and I moved to Redmond, Oregon. And in 2020, I ran for mayor of Redmond, Oregon, unsuccessfully. And in 2022, I'm going to run for mayor of Redmond, Oregon again as a depopulationist first and a libertarian second. And in 24 and 28, I'm going to run for president of the United States of America again as a depopulationist first and a libertarian second. And a libertarian is somebody who is for less government and more freedom. A libertarian is somebody who's socially conservative. I'm sorry, a libertarian is somebody who's socially liberal and fiscally conservative. So if it has to do with money, I'm a Republican, and if it doesn't have to do with money, I'm a Democrat. So that's me. That's who I am. Okay, so that's topic number 5. So now we can talk about topic number 6, which is the history of the universe. So when I say universe, I'm talking about this universe. I'm not talking about the pre-universe or the post-universe or the non-universe or the alternate universe or the parallel universe or the universes that are in other dimensions. I'm talking about this universe right here, the one that's right here that we're in right now. That's the universe I'm talking about. And it deserves its own name, I think. Wouldn't you agree? So I'm going to work on that a little bit sometime, maybe. So let's go back in time. Let's go back in time 15 billion years ago at a point I like to call infinite time negative. And the universe wasn't created. The universe has always existed. But because we're monkeys, we don't have the mental capacity to comprehend the concept of infinity because we think in linear straight lines when in fact the universe is actually curved. So the universe was never created. It's always existed. However, 15 billion years ago, it was real small, but it was expanding rapidly. And it was an energy plasma that expanded and cooled off and evolved into dark energy, which expanded and cooled off and evolved into dark energy and dark matter, which expanded and cooled off and evolved into